Word. Okay, so with us today for the New Age podcast, we have Stacey Prussman, who is an accomplished comedian as well as a candidate for New York City mayor. So, big stuff. So, Stacey, tell us what made you want to run for mayor for one of the world's biggest cities.
Well, I love New York. It's my home. And after the devastation that we've been facing, I believe that we are in a place of transition and renaissance. So as much as it seems like it's really bad right now, I feel that I'm the person to bring us to the 21st century and for the city to live up to its potential.
Cool. So what are some of your plans for doing that?
So I have so many different plans right now. One of my main plans, other than revitalizing our economy, which a lot of politicians is to, but I want to make it a free economy. So working New Yorkers have the opportunities to thrive and to create businesses and to have very lucrative businesses without restrictions. My other thing is I want to democratize education. So people vote on who runs their schools rather than coming from my office, the mayoral office, the mayor's office. I want local communities to vote on who runs the school systems.
Meaning like a principal, a chancellor, or
yeah, chancellor. Right now things are all assigned, and that's where all the cronyism is. So I want to like end cronyism in New York City.
So how do you feel that would change education if people could vote on who runs their school?
Well, I think a major issue with education is that from my experience working in the school system as a lecturer and sometimes teacher, not for the Board of Ed, but privately.
Right.
That I feel that the students and parents aren't in charge of their own education.
Okay.
And I think when you're in charge of your own education, you take responsibility for it more and you feel more empowered. Rather, we live in a society
that's fair enough,
where we're told what to do and we do it. I think we need to live in a society where we make responsible decisions for ourselves and then we carry those out. And I believe that should start as a young age. And that's what creates great citizens and leaders and people that are in charge of their own lives and taking responsible acts.
Interesting. But so, people and that you've spoken to, what are some things they'd like to see changed about the educational system? And what are what things do you think are valid?
I think people should be able to choose the schools they want to go to.
Right.
Number one, and some students have different needs, and that could be from special needs to have, in terms of being having trouble with learning versus people who are high IQs. That's a special need as well.
Absolutely.
So those need to be addressed. Some students have different interests. Some are highly intellectual and some are more in the trades. So we need to offer that. Some are more artistic, like myself. I was very involved in the arts. I loved writing. I loved, I do comedy and acting and things like that and dance. So everyone has a different interest. And I think that the students need to be engaged by their interests. We need to assure that students can read. That's, first and foremost.
Right.
To read. And that can't be overlooked anymore. And I think that we need to get the communities involved in education.
I mean, because in a way, now people are protesting and reopening the schools and everything, but a lot of people, you're right, don't take responsibility for their own education. So what about reopening of the schools? What would be your plan for that?
Well, I want to reopen New York and in the lockdown safely with very high, with a grading system. I have the Prussman Corona policy plan, which opens up restaurants in a safe and effective way by making restaurants adhere to certain health codes and then grading them on it from 1 to 5, similar to the so I have that for the Corona system opening.
And would the grades be published? Would it work that way?
Exactly how the A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J.
Right, when you see grade A in a restaurant.
Right, it would be when you see grade C, you're like, I don't know if I want to eat here. Same thing goes with the Corona policy opening. And I think a lot of businesses are doing a great job. And I think that schools are opening. A lot of schools are open right now in New York, I believe. And I think they have a choice.
Yeah, kids have a choice.
Mostly the safest places for students. So it's showing that 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 the spread is not happening in schools. It's showing that these 6 feet separations are working, that the masks are working. It's showing that it's working. The results are
Sure.
that if it wasn't working, then there would be a mass amount of coronavirus spreading. And, and I think it's also kids are being protected from getting cold and flus as well because of these restrictions, which is a secondary benefit.
Yeah, just a secondary benefit.
And the teachers aren't getting sick as much. So when I was in the public schools teaching privately, I used to teach job interviewing skills for a while, and I
Nice.
would always get colds and flu. And I was just in schools for a couple hours a day. I would always come home with like a sore throat or some kind of weird cold back a few years ago. So I believe that is a great place for students, and we have meals there for kids who are food insecure at home. So we have that going on because food insecurity and housing insecurity is a huge problem in New York right now. And always
Absolutely. So
worse than ever.
brings to the next topic. What's your plan for that?
Well, we do have the government already has SNAP in place, but I want to create situations where food is more readily available, healthier food is available, where
Absolutely.
where you can go and get canned goods and bring them home. And there's all kinds of organizations that do that. I just want to make sure that it's more readily available and the choices are healthy. And you can work with the private sector and the public sector together to help that.
I think one of the biggest problems is that people don't
And wasted
necessarily know where all these food pantries are on the food fridges all over the city. They may not necessarily know where it is. They may feel nervous about going there. They may feel embarrassed to ask.
It's
I think
embarrassing.
that's the biggest thing.
People are proud. They don't want to ask for help. People are proud. They rather starve than ask for help. And I understand that. And I don't want New Yorkers to feel that especially during these times, their pride should overlook their hunger or their health. I want New Yorkers' health, mental and physical wellness to come first. And that is the big platform I'm running on. Mental health. We're going to come out of this pandemic with a mental health crisis that's beyond what we ever imagined.
I mean, nobody ever really talks about that, about the
I'm
mental health.
talking about it. I'm talking about it right now. And in a lot of debates I've been speaking in, and a lot of these mayoral forums, I've been talking about the mental health crisis we're going to face. We're not going to see it right away. We're not going to see it. I just spoke to somebody that their brother they don't want to leave the house. They're in their 50s and they were always a very social person. Now they don't want to leave their house. Now just imagine if you're 10, 11, 12 years old and now you're a year in the house, how that's ingrained into your psyche.
Yeah, especially if you're a younger kid and it's kind of like how you know life more. It's like, and just also the difficulties of isolation and the PTSD from that. I mean, I don't know, but me personally, like once this is over, I don't know if I'll ever do another thing on Zoom again. Like
I hate Zoom. I hate Zoom.
I have to say that the Zoom freezing out and all the trauma, everything associated with it, I don't think I'll do a Zoom again once it's over.
Well, it's funny that you say that, Esme, because I said you're Esme, right? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Esme? Okay. It's French, right?
Yes.
Is that French? It's French, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a
Je parle français un
nickname,
peu.
actually.
Je parle français un peu. J'étais à l'école in junior high school. Anyway, I think that, being a live performer for many years, my whole life, and even working in film and TV, you're around people. Now when you're on sets, I haven't been on a set in a while, but it's hard to work. I have friends that are, you have to take a million COVID tests, which is, it's hard, and so people are back to work, but it's under a lot of conditions.
Absolutely.
I had a
And
friend
just,
on set, the doors were open, and it was at 40 degrees out, and they're 30 degrees, they were freezing. I mean, there's like, you can't, it's not comfortable to work as much as on set as it used to be.
so if people were in different films, the filming was done outside a lot of the time, you're
Inside, but
saying,
now
even when it's
doors are
winter.
open and there's a lot of tests going on. There's less, everyone's distanced, and it's it's not they're getting filming done, but it's not that filming
It's
was
not the same kind of an experience for sure.
well, I mean, yeah, I mean, it's harder. It's like people can't come near each other in your trailer, and it's a whole bunch of stuff. There's a lot of SAG rules and whatnot. So as I've been hearing, I haven't really been doing anything right now, but I know that I might have to film a commercial for my campaign, and it's going to be hard. And so basically, I think a lot of the issues is that we're going to be living differently for a while. We need to,
Sure.
and we already feel that way, I believe. But I think that at the end, I think, and then when we're left with the mental health crisis coming out of this, we're going to have to reprogram. And this sounds very cultish, but we need to reprogram people to feel safe.
It's
Both,
true.
and that's for myself as well as my friends and my family and young ones. So I think we need to really be aware of that before anything. I think we can't ignore that. The mental and physical go together. It's not separate. I don't think people could be miserable and then be healthy. I've never seen that.
Absolutely. Maybe me, because I'm the
Right.
world's healthiest person, and maybe sometimes I am miserable.
Well, it comes
Um,
to the territory if you're a comedian. So
what?
it comes to the territory if you do comedy or things like that. So
Absolute. There's a reason why we get on stage, because at least then someone will listen to us.
mhm.
So that's a good segue. But so you're a comedian, and how do you think being a comedian kind of influences like your campaign style, how you're like talking to people, that kind of thing?
Well, that's funny you said that because people keep asking me about, well, you're a comic. Well, first of all, I was an actor and I was also a motivational speaker. So it's not
Right.
so different than doing either, but it's not different than doing policy, writing policy, talking about policy. I was involved in eating disorders. I'm an eating disorder survivor. So I spoke on eating disorders for many, many years.
Right.
And so I think that in terms of my stand up, I use that in my eating disorder lectures, so I know how to be somewhat appropriate.
Right.
But I also know how when to joke and when not to joke, and I love to joke, and I think people need to laugh, both in politics and out of politics. So I think that will help get the message across. Solid policy with a little humor can create a lot of change, I believe.
Yeah. But maybe sometimes I guess you can joke your way out of something, or also maybe use humor to like explain a policy. Is
Right. Sometimes things are really heavy. Like when I
right.
used to speak, all right, so I'll give you an example. My eating disorder, when I did my eating disorder talks,
Sure.
I, I did a lot of colleges and I also did treatment centers. And I did one specific treatment center that was like for people who are very ill with
Right.
eating disorders. They had feeding tubes and they were very emaciated and ill. And they
Sure.
looked, I could have been walking into a cancer ward. That's what it looked like.
Right.
But it was an eating disorder clinic. And so humor was really important. It was such a dark situation that humor was so important to get the point across because everyone was speaking at this specific event I was headlining, and it was very dark and very serious, and they needed to laugh and they also needed to hear the truth about the disease. And I think when you put it together, it helped people hear it better.
Absolutely.
It I think it disarmed people. That's the right word. It disarmed a lot of people. I got a letter from a young woman's father that said, "Thank you for your speech because it was funny, but I was able to hear it for the first time that my daughter was struggling and she got the help she needed." So I think that, and I've seen it work in a lot of cases as long as, the humor is done tastefully and, in terms of policy, in terms of these types of situations.
Sure.
And so I've experimented a lot with it over the years. So as a politician and someone who's going to express policy and lead, if there's a happy medium, how much humor to use versus when to sort of like shut the hell up and
Exactly.
just say what needs to be said. Yeah.
Well, I've got to learn how to when to shut the hell up. That's something I don't know anything
No,
about, unfortunately.
no, I'm wearing
And
giant earrings. I can't believe these earrings are crazy. Anyway,
they're great.
and an
My
ear
hair
cuff.
always gets caught in earrings. That's why I
I'm,
never wear them.
I've been wearing earrings. This is so weird. I bought these like crappy earrings just to wear at Zoom because I like this is like my big night out, It's like a
It's
date
true,
for
right?
me. I'm drinking wine and seltzer water like I'm at a bar.
So when you're in a pandemic, how do you go about like, collecting signatures, getting the word out? How does that all work?
Things like this, Zoom, and where campaigning online. I've done some live, one or two, three, maybe three live events so far. It's going to get more and the weather gets better. I think it'll open up, and just basically a lot of, broadcasting, radio, podcasting, some TV. That's basically it. I'm trying to get the word out. Donate what you can at presswomenformayor.com. I get pushing it. Social media has been helpful. There's been wonderful people donating their talents and whatnot to help. So that's been great. People give it. So I do this, and can I help you with that? And if you want to join the campaign, there's so many ways to do it. Like, people have so much talent they have to offer, and it's been such a great way to connect with people.
Cool. And I assume you're going to get all the comic votes. If
I don't know,
vote.
maybe not. Maybe they. I'm not assuming anything.
Or if you took their spot somewhere, maybe they won't vote for you.
I'll book you if you vote for me. That's all they have to hear.
There you go. You say, I'm going to have a show.
What's interesting is that I'm running third party. I'm running Libertarian. So I believe that as a Libertarian, I think it'll help bring the city together, and comics with probably opposing views might meet in the middle where I am. So, and people in general will meet in the middle.
So that's why you kind of opted for the Libertarian path.
No, I believe in their values, and the party, obviously I'm on the state committee of the Libertarian Party, so I'm involved in it, but also because I believe that it's a very diverse party, and it listens to each other. People want to hear the different, hear each other's opinions. We fight like crazy sometimes at my meetings, but we always come to a conclusion in some way where it's obviously my word is, I'm the candidate, but I listen to everyone's opinions, and then we create a policy that works for everybody, and myself included, because it's my campaign. But I like that I'm able to hear different opinions on different sides. We have more liberal people, we have more conservative people, we have centrists on my policy team. So I'm really excited. I love that.
It sounds like you really want to derive a consensus from different ends of the spectrum. You're not, it's good in a way to hear different viewpoints. You don't want to just make it like biased in a way where we only go and take left-wing positions on stuff, or we only take more right-wing positions. So, and a Libertarian, you're on the ballot, and people can always vote for you. There's no issue with getting onto the ballot.
Well, yeah, ballot access is, well,
or
if
what's
there
the story
is
with that?
We're working. I don't know. I'll probably most likely get on the ballot. It's you'll probably see me on the ballot, basically.
Nice.
Some way, shape, or form. We'll make sure of that.
Cool. So, what about plans for reopening the comedy clubs? Is that anywhere?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we need to reopen. Everyone's very doom and gloom. I believe, and I believe solely in my heart. Maybe not tomorrow, maybe not 2 months from now, but maybe by summer and summer and fall, that we are going to have an artistic renaissance. Artists are going to come back to New York, from the visual artists, painters, dancers, actors, singers, the small one-woman show in off Broadway, off Broadway, comedians, obviously, musicians, every type of artist is going to come back.
Sure.
And express themselves here in New York. I believe we're going to have a renaissance. I think that it's going to be a more affordable city. It's not going to be so corporatized as it had been.
Thank God.
Prior to, not that we can't use corporate money, because we always can use it, but I think we're going to have space and room for artists to come back to New York City and be able to express themselves and perform and have a place here. I think over the last 15 years, I saw we were losing that. People are like, forget it, I'm leaving, I'm going to LA, I'm going somewhere else. And I want to see the one-woman show. I want to see the performance artist. I want to see the saxophone player. I want to see the jazz band. I'm excited to see that again. The small jazz club. It's going to be more of a speakeasy city, so to speak, like smaller venues, smaller theaters. Not everything is corporatized. I think that's what we're going to be looking at in the next few years.
Hopefully. I mean, it's certainly important to make it a more affordable city if you want artists to stay, because in the past, the
We kick
rents
them
were
out. We
just
kick them out. We kick them out.
you're just driving people further and further away because the rents are just ridiculous. I mean, I couldn't believe when I would hear people say, well, I'm getting a studio for 2,500 and that's a deal. And I'm like, is
Who
it?
wants to
Like,
live like
on
that?
what planet is 2,500 a deal? And
People don't believe it. I mean, they're talking about minimum wage of $15 an hour. You cannot live in New York City
on
in a
$15.
studio for $15 an hour, period. I mean, unless you found a studio for like $800 or $900, and even that you'll be struggling with the taxes taken out after your $15 an hour. So you're coming home maybe $500 a week, and then maybe minus taxes, and then that's a
So you
thousand dollars.
basically only have a couple hundred left for food. So you
And then
better
people
figure
have to
out a
pay like
way.
health insurance premiums and like whatever nonsense they have to pay, you know?
There's
So
certainly a lot of expenses that people have, and a lot
Subway,
of jobs are not livable, and people end up working 3 jobs. And, other countries have a much more like hospitable approach and hospitable environment to artists. And like in Europe, you can, if you're a musician, you can get childcare vouchers for free when you are practicing. So if you're a pianist and you want to practice the piano, while you're practicing the piano, you can get free childcare for your
that's
child.
amazing. Yeah, we no
I
one
mean,
ever
so
really cared about our
compared to
artists
here, where
here.
you pretty much have to give away your whole salary for any childcare for probably, like, who knows, a drunk teenager to watch your child for an hour.
Yeah,
You're
and
gonna
they cut the arts in schools. I remember that was going on for a while, like the music programs, and it was like people were like fighting for like, when I went to school, we had a dance program, music program. I was in a rock band. I went to a public school in the city. It was a very good public school
yeah,
for high school, but it wasn't a rich school. Just they just really put a lot into diverse studies, and I want to bring that to every school. I think every student deserves every New York City public school deserves the type of education that I had as in a public school growing up in the 80s and 90s.
right.
Not to age myself. I believe that if it had been done and it worked, there's no reason why it wouldn't work again. We had inclusion, diversity, open discussion. We had a lot of great. The Council for Unity was born in my high school. I went to John Dewey High School in Brooklyn. The Council for Unity is all around the country now. So everything that we see that worked well in my high school, and I think we can repeat it and make it better, even make it better than it had been. So I think we're on a good. I think with the right leadership, we are on the way to making schools work better than they've ever worked before.
Nice. And what do you think some of the benefits are of having school arts in the schools?
Well, arts is the way kids express themselves.
Right.
It'll stop violence. It will stop, self-expression is the best form, especially artistic self-expression, no matter what it might be for somebody, either it be music, dance, drawing, art, painting, whatever it is the best way to express yourself emotionally. If you can't verbalize your feelings, you can do it through art. That's like they have art therapy. So mental health, I believe, and art go hand in hand because it's
Right.
self-expression. Not everyone could verbalize the words they're feeling or they're ashamed of the words, but they may be able to paint those words or dance those words or sing those words
Yeah, because
or
there's
write
something to
those
be said
words.
for like multiple intelligences, and everybody has different kinds of intelligence. And now it seems like only, traditional verbal intelligence is what's the classes are catered to, and how fast can you solve an algebra equation and how many synonyms for.
Right.
So
I mean,
there's
those things are
definitely like,
important. Like, we're writing policy and we're writing different like bios. I'm like, it's thesaurus time. Let's get the right words and
it's
words
always
have
about
meaning,
the right word.
and the right words have meaning, and they certain words have certain they'll create emotional responses, or they'll create excitement, or they'll create negative response. It depends on what the word is for each person. So getting the right words are important. And all that stuff is important, like exactly, the typical algebra and all that crap. And we all had to go through that science. And I was like, I happened to be a great science student, believe it or not. Like I didn't
Right.
realize it, but as growing up, I was like a very I won the Earth Science Award for the city, and
Nice.
I didn't pursue the
I
sciences.
actually skipped out of Earth Science.
Right. Some
To
people,
be,
I
I
mean, I
was in
wasn't
like a
even,
track
I was,
where,
I loved it. Like I didn't realize how much I love certain things. Like climate change is a big deal. I haven't even addressed that in my campaign. I've been working really hard with my own type of green deal for the city based on specific facts that we've been pulling up, money, what needs to be changed, what can be changed realistically. Because a lot of politicians will promise you, we're going to do A, B, and C, and these things are not possible, being there's not budget. They just want to say that they can do certain things that
wow.
can't be
So
done.
they just want to say it to get your vote. And then afterwards they'll worry about the
Right.
fact that they can't do it.
Or align with a certain group. But I'm taking things further. I'm actually doing the research to beyond, above and beyond anything that that I would normally have done. And I'm saying, no, I want to, if I'm going to make the city greener and more environmentally conscious and create lower CO2 impact, these are the ways to do it. And this is the way to do it correctly for our city. So I have very
Okay.
strong views on things, and I'm basing it on science and actual facts of what is available financially for the city and what could be available financially for the city.
Always makes sense. I mean, it just seems like probably other politicians, they just want to get the vote, and it's kind of like a used car salesman. We'll just say this, even if it's maybe not possible. So I also saw that you are going to end the red light cameras. And with that, you would definitely have my vote.
Well, facts have said it hasn't exactly stopped speeding or red light. If people are going to run a red light, they're doing it on purpose, and they're, sometimes accidentally it turns yellow and then you miss it. I've seen
Right.
that happen. I mean, that does happen, and it's not in, but stopping short, sometimes stopping short will create more accidents. You like,
Right.
so I'd rather put speed bumps in those places and, or make the red light bigger or whatever we need to do. Because if you're going to run a red light, it's not because there's a camera. You don't care. You're going to run it
You
because
don't
you're
care
running.
about the camera.
Right. If you're at that point, either you're maybe not driving correctly, you could be inebriated or something. But in terms of red light cameras, I don't think it's constitutional because you can't fight in court against a camera.
That's the other thing I don't like is
And they're
like,
not always right. Like my friend Evan, Evan and I were driving, and
yeah,
we got stopped because it said stop on the floor, and we didn't, or no right turn or something was on the floor. Not, we were looking ahead, not on the floor. It was a weird sign. It was very small. Sometimes they make signs very small. So it's another thing. I want to make signs bigger. If no right turns, I want signs to be bigger. And so then when he got the ticket, it was for something else. It was for like a red light, but that wasn't what the cop stopped us for. So I don't know, so I think you can't really fight. I'd rather be able to have people go into court if they're going to fight something because someone saw them and stopped them than a camera telling them. I don't think it's
yeah, because the
helping.
camera, you can't win. It's like if someone caught you cheating, I guess, and opened the door on you. You don't
Yeah, it's
win.
like it also the cameras aren't always accurate. They get the wrong cars a lot of times. There's different
A lot of the
problems.
time it catches you if you were just slightly over the line, it catches you. Like, it's not necessarily, or it was yellow and it turned red. It's not
And
always
you don't
that,
want to stop short, right? And then hurt somebody. That's even worse.
because you could hurt somebody if you stop short. And I swear I would probably be rolling in money if not for the red light cameras and parking
So
tickets.
I really want to get rid of those. I mean, maybe one or two in like like maybe Queens Boulevard areas that are very high in like
Sure.
traffic deaths and traffic accidents, but the majority by, they're bye, and I want to think about other alternatives. I don't think I think people, if they're going to run red lights and hurt people, they're going to do it because they're probably drunk or not looking. A camera's not going to help.
Sure. Um, what about like parking spaces? I mean, it's a huge issue of not enough. I mean, I've circled like
There's an
hours.
argument about people don't want cars in the city. That's,
Yeah, I've heard of that they may not
they
allow
want bikes.
cars.
And so I think one of the issues is that we need to make room for both. to some
Right.
degree. So I think where we have a lot of bikes, I want to keep the bikes and station them in different places.
Okay.
And that I would work with urban planners and whatnot to see if that's possible.
Right.
We do have room for bikers. I want it to be a bike friendly city because I think biking is healthy, especially with coronavirus. People, as long as you're not icy, and it's probably safe in a lot of ways.
Right.
But we've never been 100% biking cities. A lot of people that don't feel comfortable in public transportation and they take cars because they're elderly or they're disabled or they're just not comfortable with the coronavirus being amongst other people.
I certainly have not
So,
taken a subway in a long time.
so
And
I
I
mean,
don't bike either because I'd be
we're not
scared
a
of the
parking
traffic.
city. Um, Maybe there's a way to do more public garages somewhere. That
I
might be a
think
way to
so, right?
make
Or
money for the
lots.
city. Yeah, I think rather than there's a lot of privatized garages, maybe public municipal parking. I think that would be more
I mean,
I
I
have to look
see
into that.
municipal parking like a lot in like Stamford, Connecticut, and other cities like
And
that.
Brooklyn, there's some Brooklyn and there's some parking lot. So, well, we have to look, I have to see what's available, what in the land right now. We haven't even got to the parking issues and I'm just taking it one step at a time in my campaign. There's going to be a lot of issues and a lot of different situations that come up. So we're trying to address each one. Nothing's going to be solved overnight. It's going to be it's going to be a process. We're going to have to, healing is always a process and the city needs healing.
Because I think as long as, you understand the process to solving a problem and the resources available, then I think that's being on the right track. And as long as you're working towards solving the problem every day, that's what's important. Like people are unrealistic that they just expect magic. And now so and so's mayor,
They
and
want
now
a
everything's going to change.
Mayor McMagic, like McMansion. They want a Mayor McMagic, and I'm not going to ever promise something that is impossible to deliver, that is impossible to do. I'm not going to make false promises so people get excited. I'm going to try my hardest to get the things I want done that are possible, and and if I can make the impossible possible, I'll do that. But I don't want to promise New Yorkers. I don't want to disappoint New Yorkers if I don't have to. I mean, I'm gonna try to do the best I can with each promise I give. And that's how I feel I'm gonna run the city. And I'm a very tough woman. Like people think, oh, she's not gonna be tough. I'm tough. I want to be tough on crime, fair on other crimes. I think we need police reform. I think police are overworked and I think they need to be restructured. And
Sure.
I support Black Lives Matter. I believe that Black lives do matter, and we need to help that organization. And we need to make people. No one should be afraid of fearful of the police ever.
I
And I
mean,
want
because that's a
all
real
people.
issue. And a lot of people have a story about an unpleasant encounter with the police. I mean, I certainly have where,
And no one
and,
should. The police should
but we need
never make you
police.
feel unsafe. If
Like
you
the
didn't
thing
commit, if
is
you're not
that,
holding up a store, you should never feel unsafe.
I mean, the thing is, a lot of times we all like see a policeman and we're like, you know what? I'm just going to walk the other way. Like,
Yeah, I mean,
like even though I haven't held up a store, I haven't
no,
killed
you're a good
anyone yet.
person. What's interesting? As a child, my grandmother would tell me, if you get lost, Stacy, go to a policeman and tell him your address. He'll take you home. That's what you do. That's a safe thing to do. And sadly, that's gone away. And I want to bring that back. I want to make the police, like they're there to protect you, not harass you,
Yeah,
hurt you. We have enough of that. And you know what? There are a lot of great cops out there, and I would never say
definitely.
there are some amazing cops. They've helped me. They're cops of all walks of life. They're good people, and there are some really crappy ones. And I think that just like any job, there are some good and bad. So I think it's really important to reward the good ones and figure a way to get rid of the bad ones. Just like teachers, there are teachers sitting in these places, these holding tomb type situations. They're in like these centers, and forgot the names of the centers, and we spend a lot of money. They're accused of crimes and they stay there for years until their trial comes up. So, and the city loses a lot of money
Yeah,
on
just
that.
paying them to sit in a room, basically.
I want to end the term. I want to make sure that their trials are timely and that there's a way to do, and if they are held in these holding facilities that they are doing some sort of they're doing administrative work of some sort.
Yeah, there's got to be something they can do besides just sitting there and doing the
Yeah.
crossword. Um, so you mentioned in your campaign on your website that you're going to try to get rid of the horse and carriage. And what's the story behind that?
Well, obviously horses, the debate, I'm an animal rights activist. I've always been one. It's something that
Sure.
motivated me for many years. Watching horses on Fifth Avenue struggling to carry, falling down, collapsing, noisy, it's not a place for horses. And so I have a plan to build an equine education system.
Oh,
It's
okay.
an equine education center in a city place, and maybe work with a private company, but probably to create education around horses, and those horses would live there. It'd be like a sanctuary type situation, and it would educate people on horses, and the horses would be taken care of. It would honor the working horses of today.
I mean, because
And
they're like anyone else, they don't deserve to be overworked and abused. And I've seen them had to work in like
no, and people are
extreme
like
heat and
horrible, just like, yeah. And the people, there's a woman, I don't even know her name, she's been fighting with me online about it nonstop, and it's like, she's a horse driver, and I have a place for people that are horse drivers too, so they don't lose their jobs. They can work in the equine education center giving education. I want to make sure that they're taken care of. So probably owners of the horses probably hate me. Well, there's owners of horses.
well,
I don't have the authority to take their horses away. I would never do that, but I want to make sure the horses are taken care of and they're happy.
so that's another good job. You've probably encountered like some hostility and opposition, and how can you really handle that? I mean, that's gotta
Well,
stink on some days if people write you hateful remarks or
it's funny. Right now, some of my policies are taken. People love some of them, and some people don't like it. Like, I want to decriminalize sex work. People are like,
right.
don't women have? Yeah, I don't believe that people should be arrested for consensual sex work. Not,
Why? Yeah,
it's
it's
if
work
it's
like
between
any
if
other
it's
work.
consensual. If you or I wanted to be sex workers, we have every right to do so, as long as we, and if God forbid we're harmed, we can go to the police without being worried about being. And that, that there's a lot of people out there. We'd be able to catch a lot of people that are doing crimes that do hurt sex workers. And if a sex worker comes forward saying this person harmed me, we might get a lot of very violent criminals off the street. First of all, that's not the reason why I want to decriminalize sex work, but I wanted to put that aside because I was watching a serial killer show about guys who kill hookers. Anyway,
Right.
or sex workers. So I believe that if it's between, and sex work could mean different things for different people. It can mean, fetish work, or, and I don't know if that's so much criminalized. It could be, regular sex or traditional sex, as you say. It could be oral sex. It could be all kinds of, it could be whatever someone deems sexual, being paid
But
for.
it's basically if you're being paid to perform a sexual act and you willingly consent to it, it's legal. It's a
And you're
job just like
sober of
any
mind,
other job.
sound mind and body, and no one's forcing you. There's no pimp yelling at you, or you're not trafficked in and you're like paying off your debt to the traffickers. Yeah. And I want to,
It's
those
just a
people.
regular, legit profession.
Oh, and don't get me wrong, I will be hard on the traffickers. Those people that are trying to exploit, they're going to be gone. And the people who are willfully doing sex work will feel safe, and just like they are in Nevada, like it's a safe environment, and it's
I mean, maybe
therapeutically.
it'll create more
And
jobs.
it creates jobs. I mean, and if you don't want to do it, no one's making you do it. If you don't want
Exactly.
to,
If it's not for you, go find
it's
another
for
job.
some people it helps them. For some people it doesn't. We're not in a Puritan society. We're in New York City in 2021. We need to like step it up. And so I feel like there's a place for, I want my sex worker friends to feel safe. I don't,
Because it's like if you encounter like work issues, it's like then you feel like you have recourse and you have someone you can go to.
right. And yeah, and it does happen. And it's no reason why in our city that we should, and also it's like, it's a way out of poverty for some people, believe it or not. They open businesses,
Why
they take their
not?
money, and they open other types of businesses, and they get out of sex work. So uh it's a personal thing. And it definitely strikes a chord, and people are like, what are you, crazy? But it actually at the end of the day will protect the young people, the children, and the vulnerable. That's my main concern. And the sex worker, and the
Yeah.
person that, a lot of men, I've talked to a lot of men, and this is kind of on a personal level, that are shy, that are uncomfortable with sex in general, and they they want to go to a sex worker to feel more confident about their sexual prowess and their
Why
techniques, and
not? Because it's a great way to kind of,
right, and they're not
you
embarrassed
won't be
about.
turned down.
And then they said when they have a girlfriend or a wife or a lover, they won't feel nervous,
Yeah, you know what you're doing.
right. And there's something to be said about that. And I would never uh put anyone down for that, because if your intentions are to better yourself, and you're not hurting anybody, then why the hell not?
I mean, exactly. If you agreed to an amount, it's like any business transaction. And like then the person won't feel clumsy. If they do finally get a guy
Right.
finally gets a girlfriend, he knows what he's doing. He doesn't feel like, oh God, I think of like the 40-year-old virgin and the guy,
There are a lot of men
like,
like that, and I do sympathize. And there's women too, that go to sex workers. It's not
yeah,
it's just men, women. And I think that people feel isolated now. They feel this, they don't feel connected to other people. People aren't just
absolutely.
hooking up with people like they used to because of the pandemic. And so I think that's another issue, that's we're going to come out of that. People are going to feel like socially weird in general. They're going to feel
It
not
is
so
gonna
shut
be, I
down
hadn't thought of
sexually.
it, but like it is
It's
gonna
it's a
be
weird
weird because
issue. I
like,
know it's a weird issue no one thinks about. And sexuality is very much part of the human soul. And so I think I don't believe that people should just like not, be able to explore that. And I think it's important to explore that. But that's a personal choice. Again, a personal choice. I don't ever want to get involved between you and your personal, unless it harms somebody, a vulnerable person or an animal. Then
right.
it, then I step in. Because I don't view animals as property. I view them as beings. So if you harm an animal, to me, that is not acceptable. As a libertarian, people like, I'm like, I don't view them as property. I'm viewing them as you harming somebody
They're
else.
just another human being. I wonder why my dog
So a
munch
lot of
isn't
such,
barking
so
right now.
people are fighting with me about that. But as a libertarian, the animal rights is huge, because they don't have a vote. They don't speak. They're beings, and you just can't just use them for your own, bidding, to hurt them, and to exploit. Exploitation to me is not okay. For
I mean,
children,
it's true.
animals, older people, elderly, I want to create a lot of laws to help the elderly become more protected. I think there are a group of people that have gotten lost,
I
particularly.
mean, they are in a way forgotten, and a lot of times people are just like, oh, you had to be there. Like people often like resent the elderly. Like, why can't they figure this out? Why do we need to help
No,
them?
we need to respect our elderly and make sure that they're taken care of as a city. I don't want to have a bunch of lonely, God willing, we'll all be old one day. And I want to be the one in the city that makes sure that the elderly people in New York City don't feel lonely and forgotten about.
So how can we do this? Because that sounds like a great idea.
Create affordable housing, particularly for elderly, which we do have, but more of it. Create communities, involvement, have them more involved in the communities, have more outreach. Again, mental health. It's important for everybody. There's a lot of depressed elderly people who haven't seen their kids in a year.
I mean, if they haven't seen their kids or their grandkids, then I mean, one of the things I think would be nice is like maybe like some kind of a buddy
Buddy,
program where
more
even young
programs.
kids in high school connect with an elderly person, and maybe it's even part of like coursework, like
That's a great
some kind of a
idea.
service, and they help them shop or they help read a book with them or something where they both can learn with each other, and that would be a great addition to like
Oh
the high
yeah.
school curriculum.
I think that's a great idea. I think that a lot of people, I mean, I know there are some programs similar to that, not many, but there are some, and there's some high school kids who don't have good parenting right now, and that would be a great thing it'd be a mutual beneficial relationship.
What like the
So
older people teach the younger parents
yeah,
about
like,
parenting.
I think that like there needs to be a little bit of that, a little bit of, you know, of that generational, cross generational relationship.
I mean, one of the toughest things I think is that a lot of parents just, I'm on different listservs and parent Facebook groups, and they just like are like, well, what do I do about this? And what do I do about that? And they're posting it on the Facebook group. So there's obviously, both parents a lot of the time are working and, hiring nannies. And a lot of the time it just seems like they're taking on a lot. And, the model in the 1950s where, women had dinner on the table, but they didn't work. And now it's like women have to work an 80-hour work week, and they've got to care for the kids, and
We're
they got to
doing
get dinner on
everything.
the
We're literally
table.
doing everything. Yeah. Women are doing
And it
caring for the
just
kids,
seems like
working, eating, cooking food, cleaning, like you said. Yeah.
you have to
Uh,
do everything plus the 50, 60, 80-hour work week, because God knows nobody can survive on one income.
nobody can. It's hard, it's like we're over. I think maybe this pandemic taught us one thing is that we just stopped and we were able to like just be in ourselves for a little while, even if we were working. It like things sort of stopped enough for us to like recognize what's going on inside of ourselves and to look inside and take a breath and just like slow everything down. I think in that way, this pandemic was a blessing in disguise. Sadly, we lost a lot of people and people have
Absolutely.
passed away, and that's very, very sad. But I think overall, if we want to be more positive about it, other than that and that tragedy, I believe that it made us stop and really look at ourselves and what we wanted. People changed their lives. I mean, my very close friend lost 100 pounds and now she's a bodybuilder. I have
Nice.
other friends that changed careers. People like left the city or came into the city. People moved. They're like, I don't want to be doing this anymore, and they changed what they were doing. So I think in some way, this pandemic created a sense of like, oh, like connectiveness to oneself and their community and the people around them. And I think in that way, it was a beautiful thing. So for all the awful tragedies and death and destruction and despair, there comes out something good comes out of it because you don't go through growth without pain. And
Right.
so I believe that we've gone through a lot of pain. And I think through that, we're coming out with growth.
Great.
Yeah.
Awesome. What else was I going to ask about? Is there going to be a debate? What's your
Um,
approach to being in a debate?
well, I've been in numerous actually mayoral forums, they called. They're
Right.
not debatey. You can go back. Usually people talk for 2 minutes and the next person talks 2 minutes. And then sometimes people go back and forth, but not too often yet. But it's going to get more heated when the Democratic nominee I'm running Libertarian, mind you.
But
So,
when the Democratic nominee is
right. And
determined.
the Republican, whoever the Republican is, I don't know. That's when the challenges are going to happen. That's when it's going to get more heated and there's going to be a debate at some point. So we'll
Nice.
see, I'm very excited
So
about it.
who's one of like your political role models
Oh,
that it kind of
wow.
inspires you?
I've never maybe Kennedy was a really great political role model. Martin Luther King. Like I'm like
Definitely.
I'm very 60s chick that way, even though I was born in the 70s. um uh Different, I guess those are, I mean, they're old school, but they're great political role models. Ruth Bader Ginsburg was a great political role model. Uh I like people who aren't hypocrites. If you're not a hypocrite,
Right.
I kind of respect that in a
Yeah.
politician.
Yeah. You stand
And Mayor
behind what you
Koch,
believe in.
Mayor Koch, even though he didn't handle the AIDS crisis so wonderfully, but he was like the happy, feel good mayor for most of the time. So I mean,
Yeah.
Mayor Koch is the New York's mayor. Every time I think of mayor, I always think of
Well, he
Koch.
did get a bridge named after him, so he can't have been
Yeah,
that.
yeah. I mean, we haven't had a female mayor yet, so you
So
never
maybe this will be the
know.
first one.
There could be firsts for that.
So
Uh,
is there anything
Yeah.
else you want to say before we wrap this up?
I just want to say, be good to yourself. Take care of your health, both physically and mentally. Uh, be honest with yourself. People feel good in terms of what your decisions are in your life. If you want to do something, it's the time to do it. Don't be afraid to take chances, take risks. And it's the way to go, because I think that right now is like, it's, it's time to come back to the city, come back to New York and create. We need more artists. We need more even creative people in business, like with
Sure.
interesting business innovation. Like that's also, I forgot to mention, I want innovation, and like that type of businesses are important too. That's part of art. Business is an art too. So like creative businesses, businesses that solve problems are great.
Sure.
So yeah, it's like it's a time. Don't be afraid. It's time to like go balls out. That's what I want to say.
Awesome.
And go
All
to
right.
prussmanformayor.com,
Yeah.
donate, volunteer, get in touch with the campaign. We need your help. Let's get this city going, and let's wake New York the F up.
Wonderful. All right. We're on the
Thank you
way to
so
victory.
much for
Thank you.
having
This
me.
was wonderful.
This is so much fun. I really enjoyed it. Thank you for having me, and let me know when it's airing.
Awesome. Thanks so much, dear.
Bye bye. Bye bye.
Bye.